Black male spirituality, back again with another message. As always, I want to shout out my high vibrational, high value brothers. I also want to send love to all the lovely high vibrational ladies who may be listening. Happy New Year, everyone. It's been a while since my last video. 2023 was a little different. I don't know if it's just me, but just my personal life, looking at what's being talked about in these YouTube and internet streets. It's a different world. Be interesting to see what 2024 brings us. Obviously, as a high vibrational person, you should always focus on the things that you want to come to pass as opposed to things that, annoy you, things that you don't like. It's hard to do that because you have to be aware of the bad in the world, but you can't lose your focus on the good goals you have for your life. So with that quick thought out of the way, I wanted to do a short video, hopefully, to this clip that's been going around off of TikTok. And it's another one of these ladies who's too good for a chain restaurant, but weirdly enough, this lady I guess is okay with a food court. Essentially, she called it a food hall to make it sound better, but it's a food court. um, at any rate, I'm going to pull up the video. We're going to watch the video. It's only 2 minutes long. We're also going to look through the comments because, the good side of this video is that you're seeing a lot of people, both men and women, criticizing what she's saying here. So hopefully this is a sign of more reasonableness on the horizon in the future, or at least people who are more reasonable coming more to the fore and speaking up. At any rate, let me share my screen. And we will get right into the video.
um, Top five worst dates of my life, and yeah, I should have seen it coming. First red flag, he.
So right off the bat, and again, this kind of relates to what I said before I even started this video. She's all like, "Oh, I should have seen it coming." Right there, she's talking about this guy having a red flag, but I'd put a red flag on her. The fact that you're already expecting a bad outcome, that's you're shooting yourself in the foot. I don't know if this woman knows the law of attraction. I don't know what her spiritual views are and things like that. But, she's already going into a dating situation with bad faith, which I think that's the main issue with a lot of all of this is, going into our interactions with each other, especially as Black men, Black women, because, that's what I talk about here. And we're already waiting for the F crap, to put it nicely. You're not going to have a good date going into it with a mentality like this. Obviously, you got to be aware of things, but already getting into it, you're being impatient with someone. You're not really getting to know them. You're just already off the back trying to nitpick the date, whether they want to pay, whether they want to pay for your parking, pay for a babysitter, you know. But we'll continue the video.
Asked me if I wanted to go to Olive Garden. Yeah, I quickly curved that and suggested a place that was an Olive Garden. Yes, we go to a food hall that I suggest. And
And see the attitude, if you pay attention to the attitude right there, she's all like, I curve that. It's like, ma'am, do you want to get to know someone and possibly find a relationship or whatever the case may be? Or you just really, want to come into it? I'm going to tell you something about how you need to do stuff with me. I mean, come on. Like, and again, we talk a lot in these spaces about the masculine and feminine and what all that means, but ma'am, like, you're beating your chest, you're approaching him with a lot of hostility. I don't know if this was a Black man. If I had to guess, perhaps. And again, it's just like we start, and we wonder why our homes are broken, our families are broken because we start off on the wrong foot, with this underlying hostility. And it's not just women, even men. You're going into it thinking a girl is being a gold digger and all that. That's stuff you have to be aware of. But when it consumes you so much that you have an underlying hostility, I don't know how she said what she said, but the gentleman is taking you out to a restaurant. Presumably he's going to pay. If the guy was about to pay, I mean, this is ridiculous. Most guys are wary of even taking women out to anything with food because of the tendency for these foodie calls and such. But at any rate, we're going to keep on going. And well, before I go on, it's just like again, just, a food hall I suggested. I mean, ma'am, it's a food court. I mean, now I have been to a food hall, food court. That's actually pretty chill. It's had a couple of different spots there. It wasn't a huge food court, and also had a full bar, and they had house cocktails and everything. They'd have live music. So, I mean, there's certain places where a food hall would be good, but to me, it's just the logic is a little weird. It's like Olive Garden isn't good enough, but what's essentially a food court is. So, we'll continue.
I pick a different food stall than he picks, and he walks away when I stop to order my food. So basically, I have to pay for my own food. What are we, 12? Like, I mean, I didn't ask myself on this date, right? You asked me out. At this point, I'm like, there's no salvaging this at all.
So, again, I'll chime in here. It's like 12. I mean, I think you're acting like you're 12 in this video by being so entitled. What if he was to want to do something on the first date of a sexual nature, and then you say, no, I don't feel comfortable doing that on the first date. And he says, oh, what are we, 12? A man would be lambasted and be called pushy and borderline a word YouTube doesn't like. But we're not going to get into that too much. So, and then, she has audacity about being upset that he's not paying for the food for for her to have food at a place he didn't even select. He very well could have paid for you at Olive Garden, but you decided, no, I want to go here. If anything, you should be paying for his food because it was your idea to go to that place. And then the whole point about, oh, I didn't ask myself out, but ma'am, you want a man to approach you and talk to you. We need to quit this narrative that, oh, well, men should pay because they're the ones who ask people out. Again, I personally do pay at this point, but the woman needs to go to where I'm comfortable with if she wants me to pay. And then as I, in my discretion, see that she's actually interested, the dates will get bigger and bigger from that point on. Big way of doing that is by at least being open to testing the physical intimacy waters earlier on. That's a pro tip, ladies. If not, don't go out with the guy. Again, I understand taking things slow, but you can't take things slow, but then feel like you're entitled to a lot of different things so early on before you're sure you even like a guy. So and it's just like, if the guy hadn't asked you on a date, you'll be like, you'd probably be making another TikTok video saying, oh, why aren't the men asking us out on dates? Why not? It was like, well, I mean, if you're going to be entitled about what you should and should not have, I don't know if I'd ask you on a date. And I could take you to a fancy restaurant if I wanted to. No problem. I could take you to a fancy restaurant and then a rooftop bar, and there's a lot of guys who can do that. Well, not a lot of guys, obviously average income, but there are a lot of guys who would try to, within their budget, show you a good time if they thought that you were someone who is being genuine and acting in good faith and is being appreciative as opposed to entitled. But and again, she's like, oh, at this point, I'm like, there's no salvaging this at all. So already you're continuing to shoot yourself in the foot. Law of attraction, ma'am, I would suggest you look into it. You start negative, and in the middle of it, when things aren't going exactly the way you expected them to, you're already saying, oh, there's no salvaging it. You just like you gave up. And it's like, why did you even stay? You're already giving up on the whole interaction. So you start off wrong, you continue the negativity, so you continue wrong. Let's see what happens next.
Like, you're not serious. You're not my type. We're probably talking for an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. I'm like feeling bad about it. I'm like, okay, maybe give him a second chance. Again, it's slim pickings out here. Like reconsidering going on a second date with him at the end of this. Until he gets on the subject of like dating apps, and he opens up his Hinge app, and I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of great options on top picks. So I'm like, see, she's cute. I think it's like the end of the story. He's like, oh yeah, she is. Look, grabs his phone from my hands, looks at it, and he's like, what should I say to her?
So I'll give her some credit here. I'll side with her very briefly. That was some kind of sucker crap. I mean, dude, like, if you're on a date with somebody, if you decide that you want to continue to proceed with it, you need to act like you have some sense. Trying to talk to another woman about other women that you're on a date with, that's kind of some sucker crap, in my opinion. It's some ignorant stuff. I mean, she kind of fed into it, kind of signaling that, again, she kind of had lost interest, even though she had just said, oh, well, we talked for an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was a good conversation, but then you go and kind of feed into a guy doing something I admit is sucker crap. And you're like, oh, well, she's cute. So you've already opened the door for him. And again, it's like you're actively pushing away very thing you want to bring into your life, which I assume she wants a relationship or, someone to date or whatever the case may be. And it's like every step of the way, you're actively pushing away from what you want. She's actually literally bringing herself out of alignment with what she's trying to manifest. But I think part of her issue, she has a lot of pride and ego as if she has the leverage. It's like, ma'am, you don't. You're not an unattractive woman, but you don't have the leverage you think you have, and I don't know how old she is. I don't know how long she's been on dating apps, but you're obviously not. It seems like you're not getting the outcomes you want, but you have this pride and ego. And I understand, even as a guy, you can have pride and ego and shoot yourself in the foot. I would even admit myself, I've been prideful and egotistical and arrogant to a certain extent about my prospects. Now, mine has a little bit of basis in reality, given what I know about stats and income and all that kind of things, and the kind of things women are looking for, kind of caliber of man women are looking for. But even still, pride and ego will push you away from a lot of things the universe wants to bring into your life. So, but let's keep going. It's 30 seconds left.
You're asking your date what you should say to another woman. I say this to say, if you think it's not it, it's not it. Like, if there's one thing I've learned, it's that people will show themselves to you, like, in small ways before they show themselves in, like, big ways. So stop wasting your time, ladies. Just got
Okay, so that's the end of the video. And I want to touch on that part about if you think it's not it, it's not it. Well, I understand that sentiment, but at the end of the day, you got to think about the spiritual implications of what you're doing. If you're already going to proclaim something not to be good, not to work, then that's what you're going to get. It's going to be bad. You started it off proclaiming it's not going to work. Now, again, there's a difference between that and being discerning. But again, looking at her attitude, it's not like he was asking her to come to her house right away or to pick her up or something that sounded unsafe or weird. It's just he offered to take you to Olive Garden, which isn't that bad of a restaurant. You know, I can understand if there's some sort of diet you're following or some food restrictions that make a place not suitable for you. But again, this was an arrogance and pride and ego, thinking that you're this drop dead knockout girl who all the guys want. Again, she's not an unattractive woman, but it's just like, you're not at the level you may think you're at, to put it nicely. So let's look at these comments. I think that's something I'm going to start doing in these videos. You hear me talking, but let's see what other people are saying. Yeah, so this one guy, Davion, You was the red flag when you felt like you were too good for Olive Garden, way too bougie for any man. You're not humble at all. Agree with that 100%. Yeah. And well, it's kind of funny that this next clip, I don't know if this is a man or woman, Nunu. You also focus on the restaurant and not the fact that he was on a dating app while on a date. Priorities. And to me, that actually might be indicative of the issue here. Because a lot of times I feel like women will take guys out. And we talk about this ad nauseum where they want an experience more than they want to get to know a man. They want food, they want drinks for free more than they want to get to know the man. So, she's already focusing on the wrong thing. So that was actually, very profound there. And then KB, what's wrong with Olive Garden? I mean, it's not my favorite restaurant, but as a first date, the vibe is good for conversation. See, that's the right attitude. So it kind of gives me hope. KB, it looks like that's a woman. Another woman, little black. And these are black women at that. Okay, what's the difference between a food hall and Olive Garden? Laughing my ass off. So now we have a negative comment. The number of men in the comments asking what's wrong with Olive Garden is scary. What's scary about that, ma'am? Miss Carm. Now I can't see much in the picture, but you don't look like you're in perfect shape. So, again, I mean, you want to nitpick men, but if man nitpicks you, about your looks or about your weight, things that are actually very well within your control if you take care of yourself. Obviously, there's some people who are naturally more attractive and different bone structure, but there's a lot of things you can control. That's the interesting thing with men's standards versus women's standards. It's stuff that you can control, but we're not gonna get off on that. See what the comments here said. And oh, Tunde Williams, there are women asking as well. And then Nunu's like, you're missing the important part. The restaurant's irrelevant to the fact he was trying to plan a date with someone else while with her. And played it by Paris. So she's on her side a little bit. Okay, I get everything else, but how is Olive Garden a red flag? I must be living in a different reality. I feel like since that's an interesting point. I feel like since the pandemic, I feel like something has happened. I think that's probably part of the reason why 2023 felt so weird to me. And again, put down the comments if 2023 has felt weird to you. I think just something happened to people's mentality. Being locked inside by the government on purpose for a disease that, well, we're not going to get into it. I don't want you YouTube to stop me, but being locked in like that, I think that did something to people mentally. And the social distancing and all that stuff. I think it really did something. And I think that's part of the reason why it was probably not a mistake that's when the late great Kevin Samuels came out and got big and was talking about these conversations that are now making it into the mainstream. So we got Gigi Lovey 111. I met my date at the restaurant there, and he was waiting. Oh, okay, this is another one. Yeah, suggested we go to Wendy's. That is a little weird, her comment. So you have some people, co-signing this. You should have canceled it as soon as he suggested Hollywood. It's like where does this entitlement come from? I mean, do all of you guys, literally look yourself in the mirror every morning and see Rihanna in the mirror or Kelly Rowland or Beyonce? I mean, do you all really, and even still, I mean, let's put looks aside. What about your femininity? What about your kindness? What about your positivity? You just think you're this great, ideal person, super positive, perfect person, won't give the guy any problems, be 100% nice, 100% patient. Is that what you see yourself? And you just think, well, because I'm all that, I deserve better than Olive Garden. And is that what you really see? We got to have a realistic estimation of ourselves, because when we don't, we kind of get into an arrogant and delusional space. And this goes for men and women. Guy thinks he's an alpha but lives with his mama, and he's not, doesn't have any illness or disability that keeps him from working. you know. I mean, it can happen both ways, but obviously, we're seeing a lot of women coming out with a lot of this stuff. And this is part of the reason why, gentlemen, we need to stop being so thirsty for hookups. Not just because it's wrong, in my opinion, to use women for hookups, but when you give women this kind of attention that, let's be real, is only physical and sexual attention, you would never marry a lot of these chicks. But when you give them that kind of attention, that gives them an inflated sense of themselves that's not real. So it causes problems. Again, we got to get away from pump and dump and hookup culture and all that kind of stuff because it causes delusion in a lot of ways. So, you have a lot of different opinions. Some people are saying, oh, you got friend zoned, which she probably did with the attitude she exhibited, you know. And it's kind of funny. I remember I was watching Crimson Cure, who also did a reaction to this. Shout out to Sister Crimson Cure, Kendra Davis. But it's just like she wouldn't even go to the same food stall as him, so, and again, I don't know if it's a control thing or maybe it's just personal preference, but why not, especially if you want a guy to pay for your meal as well, why not say, hey, where would you want to go? Oh, this place looks good, and kind of decide with the gentleman where you want to go. But again, she wants to do her own thing but still get a certain kind of traditional chivalrous treatment. So yeah, some people are saying, "Oh, he did that on purpose to let you know he doesn't like you like that." Food hall, Michelle Joyner wasn't a good second choice. I think it told him that you're not interested in anything but friendship. So, a lot of women I think are making, very reasonable points. And again, guys, as we hear all this stuff about delusion and 304s and modern women, not don't let that color your view of everybody. I mean, especially with these messages going mainstream, especially with Kevin Samuels and, even going back before that with Tommy Sotomayor a little bit, people are starting to see the truth of what men's experiences are. And people are starting to see some of the craziness, I think, on both sides of these issues. So, again, there's always going to be people, who have views that are low vibrational, that are negative, that are entitled. But, there are a lot of people speaking up. And, I had a situation the other day myself where I met a girl. Well, I didn't meet her, but I matched with her on Tinder, and we were talking about going check out a spot, and she was willing to come meet me, and she asked me to come pick her up, and I'm like, I don't really know you like that, all these stories about robberies and stuff and guys getting set up, not to be negative but just being aware. And I was like, oh, well, I'm gonna, take a ride out there. I don't like to drink and drive, And she's like, oh, how much is parking? And I didn't know. I'd never been there before. And she ultimately asked me if I can pay for parking, which it's just like, again, it kind of goes to this ego and these delusional standards. It's like, ma'am, I don't know you like that. I don't know you enough to come just pick you up at your house. It could be very well be a setup. Why not just bring yourself to the restaurant? Let's talk. And then we'll kind of see at the end, how are we feeling about each other? Are you the kind of girl I do want to treat to dates? Am I the kind of guy that you would be physically attractive to and want to experiment with physical intimacy with? And I think that's perfectly reasonable. Get to know the person before you start setting expectations and standards. Even for guys, you might think a chick's a baddie, but she may not be worth it. You talk to her and she could be bat crap insane. She could be low vibrational. She could be negative. She could just bring a bunch of negativity into your life, not just directly the stuff she does, but when you're around low vibrations, you know, the spiritual will cause bad things to come your way because of the spiritual vibration you're vibrating at. Just being around the wrong people. I remember, shout out to Ricky Manor, told a story about, there's one woman he used to be with, he didn't even want to talk to again because when he was with her, her energy was such that bad things, not necessarily caused by her herself, would just happen all the time around him. That's real. So, before we go in wanting a bunch of money, there's some people's money you don't want, ma'am. There's some people's gifts and resources you don't want. Not all money is good money. Not all resources are good resources. This guy very well could have been a drug dealer and the money was illegal and all the money he was spending on you was results of crimes. He could be a professional robber robbing people for money, but you want him to spend all this money on you, not even caring where it comes from, not even caring about the character of a man you're giving your time to. It's ridiculous. And I saw a comment here. She's talking about the worst dates of my life, and somebody made the comment. I don't know if I can find it. Oh, okay, I think that it was this person, and there's another woman, another black woman. I know I'm late, but the fact that you had four other dates almost as bad slash as bad as this is concerning. Yeah, and I think the spiritual reason is because she's a low vibrational person. And again, I don't know her, but here's my hypothesis. She's a low vibrational person, negative person who attracts negativity because that's what her energy is stuck on all day. Or maybe, from a more practical perspective, and again, this is still spiritual, she doesn't discern the type of guy she deals with. Maybe she saw a guy who was tall or he looked like he had swag, looking at the surface, but underneath all that is a man who won't treat you to the date you feel like you deserve. So it's something you're doing, probably. You're the common denominator of all five of those dates. They're probably different men, different date ideas, different circumstances. You're the only thing that's in common to all of those. But at any rate, I didn't want to make this video too long, and I can't tell how long it is just being in the recording it right now. But again, I think there's a lot to unpack there. Law of attraction, being discerning, this delusion and this entitlement. The good thing though is that I think people are starting to see and understand the truth about these things. And I think ultimately these truths will lead us to the truths of why our community is in shambles, at least the parts that are within our control. So that's it for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Is this video, or at least the comments, revealing that, things are starting to shift in a better direction with the dating and relationship discourse? Or, do you have a different perspective on all this? At any rate, thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe. I'm going to try to do my best to put out as much content as possible because, again, I think there's a lot of truths that need to be shared on a lot of these topics. And a lot of people are not coming from it at this perspective. So if you want to see this perspective come out and really push the conversation in a good direction, please support the channel, comment, let me know if you have any ideas of things I should react to or cover. And that's it for now. Happy Sunday to everyone. And remember, brothers, the world has an all-time high of low vibrations. Low vibrations are at an all-time high. But remember to stay high vibrational. Namaste and peace to all.